Hello and welcome to another episode of Code to Cloud. This is the second episode that I'm recording today, and I feel like I'm stretching right across the Commonwealth. Like, I had my first guest this morning, Richard Hooper. He was in the UK, and now I've got my good friend Riann, who's in Australia, and I'm in Canada, so all the way across the far reaches of the Commonwealth. Riann, it's absolutely a pleasure to see you. How's it going, man?
Hi, good morning, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. You've been quite busy today. I imagine you had to fly to all of these places to have these in-person interviews. Hey, that could have been um, a bit more
A bit
jet
more of a
laggy, if
challenge.
you want to put it that. Hey,
I don't think I'd be
In,
very
into
approachable
that.
by the end of that session.
Well, thanks for having me,
But
man.
yeah,
My name is Riann Nolan. Originally from South Africa, a DevOps engineer, and I currently live in Brisbane, Australia. I'm a HashiCorp ambassador and the creator of the DevOps lab called HashiQube, where you can practice and demo with all the HashiCorp tools and also in popular open source applications like Kubernetes. And all of this is inside a Docker container. So you can use it on GitHub Codespaces with one click of a button, and you can have your HashiCorp Vault live on the internet, and you can then interact with pipelines and these type of stuff. But I'll show you a little bit about this later on as we talk more about dev containers, which I think is absolutely such an incredible tool for DevOps and engineers and developers at large, actually.
I couldn't agree more. I wanna learn a bit more about your Terraform, your HashiCorp lab in a wee minute. But we literally had the same scenario. We do a lot of hackathons here out in Alberta in Canada, and we were trying to go through all the prerequisites, so everybody in the audience had everything installed, and we
Yeah.
just did this. We just did this hackathon, and we came away and we went. The longest part of the hackathon was getting everybody to install the dependencies required to get going, right?
Yeah, and they're on
And
Windows, they're on Mac, Intel, ARM, they're on Linux.
Linux,
They
right?
got what's that thing? Windows subsystem for Linux, Docker open, Docker, Podman. It's incredible. So good luck. That's the hardest part is unifying these things.
So then somebody was like, "Why don't we just do this in a code space container?" And I was like, "Oh my god, why didn't we think of this before?" Right? And so we put it to work. We opened up a user story on our platform engineering hub, and I wrote a Docker file, right, with Terraform and everything else in there, right, like to get going and all the VS Code extensions. And it's reduced it from an hour to a minute, right? Just to have all the basics that you need to get going with that particular scenario. But I believe you've done some extra amazing work around this. So I thought you could just like tell people what code spaces are, what you've done with them, and everything else.
Sure. Essentially, Codespaces is an environment that travels with your code. So let's say you've got a Python project. Usually you'd need to install Python locally or on your build runner or somewhere you need Python. With a Codespace, you have a dev container folder with a dev container JSON pointing to, let's say, a Docker Compose file or a Docker file. And this will install then Python for you. Now, the advantages of that is that you have a Python project. If someone else now gets on top of your project, they just open up this project in their VS Code or in their GitHub, and they can launch this environment immediately. They've already got the pips installed. They're all on Ubuntu. Let's just give an example for that. So whether they are using locally Windows 10, 11, Mac, Intel, ARM, Linux, whatever it no longer matters. Now, this is the basics of Codespaces. What can you do with Codespaces? Well, some things I've done with Codespaces is the normal stuff. Pre-install Terraform, the cloud CLIs. Then if we step it up a little bit, we can tell our Docker container to run sbin init as its entry process. So we literally prep systemd to run in a Docker container. From there, we are able to install a Docker daemon inside of this container, and we can bring up something like K3s or Minikube inside of this container. from where we can run more pods and Dockers inside of this container. This becomes really, really convenient because let's say you have an application that you want to run on Kubernetes. For the most part, Kubernetes is still very much over there. It's not being embraced on the laptop yet, where developers can just quickly spin up a Kubernetes, test their app, test their Helm chart, run some Kubernetes commands. And so this dev containers makes it actually quite easy to spin up a Kubernetes system. Now, on my website, HashiQube.com, my project, I've got a YouTube channel, and in there it actually goes a little bit further. There's guys mounting KVM into this dev container and then running Windows inside this dev container. So I actually contributed a patch, and you can run Windows XP or Windows 11 inside of a GitHub Codespace. And I'll send you the link to it. Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's actually quite mind blowing. If you go to my GitHub, and I wonder if I can share it to you, but in my GitHub there's a Windows Codespace. I wonder if there's a chat here. Here's a chat. And if you go there, there's a Windows. Where we go, there's Windows. So if you click on Windows, you can actually run it in a Codespace. And it's just a fork from the upstream repo, but you can go there and you can edit your YAML file, the configuration file, and you can run Windows XP right here in GitHub Codespaces. Your face, Kevin.
I can't get my head around it. I really can't.
So if people think that Codespaces are limited to just a single page Node.js app, it's very much gone way past, like way past. Now, things where this could be beneficial in is you no longer need to ship laptops. For those of you who's been consultants before, at the moment I'm working at Queensland Police, and the laptops are very tied down, and oftentimes a little bit slow due to the scanning and all of the security being implied on these machines. And so with this new Codespaces, you could literally just open up Codespaces, give the guy access with a single sign-on to his AWS account, and you're off to the races. So, and maybe I'll just pause there for a little bit, and then taking it further, we can talk later on. I could show you a demo, but taking it further with Codespaces comes Center of Excellence. So in a Codespace, I would expect something like pre-commit, with static code analysis tools like Checkoff that checks your Terraform. So when you build a module, this module comes with documentation that says it's been subjected to 300 Checkoff rule sets, and it's passed this. These are skipped and these are failed, so that we bring this compliance right into our code. And so that's why it's so very good. Like a lot of people talk about open Copilot and ChatGPT and the Windsurf IDE, but I believe there's a little bit of a gap with this foundational compliance that we should build into our software, that can also help the AI write better code, stuff like formatting and linting and these type of things.
No, I completely agree. I look at Codespaces as like a workbench that I can take anywhere, right? It doesn't matter about the local machine I've got. That doesn't really become part of it anymore. As long as I've got like a web browser, right, a decent internet connection, then I can spin this up, and it's all remote compute, right? No, that's amazing.
So what I could maybe do is I could show you a Codespace that I've got.
Please.
And what I'll do is I'll share my screen over here, and I'm going to share. Actually, what I'm going to share is I'm going to try and share this screen. I'll move this here, but I'll move this guy over here. So what I've got here is, if we go to github.com my GitHub, you'll see there's a bunch of repositories that I've pinned over here. Now, the one I'd like to show you is this Terraform modules library. Now, if we just go in here, it's a normal kind of Terraform project. However, this one is more geared towards for companies that have a lot of Terraform modules. we want to subject all of these modules against one rule set and then break them off into their own little repositories where Terraform Cloud then hooks in, and you have your private module registry. So you'll see here is Terraform, and in here is AWS, and in there are modules, the concept of modules, where we add more modules. And then one level above is the concept of patterns, and patterns are built on top of modules, right? So inside there's also Azure modules, and there's just a little bit, but the real juice from this comes from this dev container. And in this dev container, we have a dev container.json file. And
can you zoom in a little bit by any chance?
Yep, I want to actually do that
Control+,
for you.
Hopefully, I think that's what it is.
Ah, there we go. Let's do that.
Beautiful.
So in this dev container.json, the reason you can bundle everything into your dev container.json. You don't need Docker Compose, and you don't need a Docker file per se. There's this concept called features from Codespaces. But what I like to do is I like to use a Docker Compose, and I like to use a Docker file. The reason is, and I'll show you this now, is that I can run a Docker file as my build agent. But let me not get ahead of myself. So dev container, you can specify some post-start commands. When this container has started, it can run some commands for us. Then there's a post-attach command when the IDE now attaches to this. And then, of course, we can specify some customizations. Now, I've just picked VS Code because that's my IDE that I use mostly. And then we can specify some settings for Python, Terraform. And lastly, we can specify some extensions that we want. What this then does is if we go to this this project and we go code and we go new code space, it's going to open up a VS Code IDE for us that looks like this. Now, right off the bat, this is a Terraform project. And if we go Terraform-v, we've got Terraform installed. And the reason why we got Terraform installed is because of this Docker file. And in this Docker file, we use tfenv to install Terraform for us. Now, we can then leverage things like pre-commit. Now, pre-commit is just, again, a bunch of rules that we can subject our code to. So we want to ensure that we have no merge conflicts. We want to take care of trailing white space, and we want to fix this end of files. And we want to see whether we've got symlinks that are broken, whether we've got AWS credentials, private key leaks. And so we can go even more, and we can say we want to run checkoff on this, onto our Terraform format. We can scan our Docker file to, do some certain things. But what this gives us is it gives us a developer environment that has all of our tools installed. So even the AWS CLI is installed over here. I think this one's version is installed over here. And this makes it easy for a project, for a developer to get started in. Now, he can code right here. He can code on GitHub Codespaces. He can code locally as well. But what I wanted to show you is in our pipeline, we can build our Docker container for the GitHub Codespace as well, for our Codespaces. And this container, we link into the Docker Compose, right? Here at the top, we say we want to use this container when this GitHub Codespace start, and we can pass some stuff to it, some environment variables and whatnot. But in our pipeline, we build this container, and we can use this for our Codespaces. But secondly, we can also tell GitHub to run our job in this. So when we do a GitHub build, our GitHub build runs in here. Now, a lot of people like these pipeline extensions. I'm not really a fan of these extensions because it's something that I cannot test locally, and it's something that's kind of over there that I'm depending on. So,
Right.
I understand why people use it, but I've gotten into the position where this extension is just not doing what I want it to do, and it's difficult for me to troubleshoot this. And now I'm being forced to go into this commit hell. I have to make a commit, I have to push it there, I have to try and see what it is and debug over there, which takes super long to do this. Now, if I just show you quickly, we can just do pre-commit run -a, and this is what pre-commit looks like. So pre-commit would run our code through a battery of tests, and it would check for AWS credentials, and it would run checkoff on our Terraform code for us. And so this, I would think, is a healthy developer environment for a project. It's got a pipeline, uses the same container as that we use, as the developer use, so it's very much one-to-one. It's got some code analysis tools, some pre-commit rules, and it's got some extensions for VS Code. So, for example, if I just open up this file and my spacing is not right, if I save it, it's going to space it for me automatically. It's going to fix my stuff for me automatically. You know what I mean? This helps already so much that just shortcuts everything for us. Now I run this pre-commit in the pipeline as well. And I think I'll just pause here for a second because I could talk all day about it, and I'm gonna just maybe pass it over to you.
Yeah. I mean, compared to the one I wrote, this is a 200% improvement rate. I love the way that you buried all the tests in there as well, and all the pre-commit stuff, and you've got checkoff running as well for basic configuration mishaps. I didn't know you could run the test internally inside of a code space, so this is news to me. I think that's a good way of doing local testing, because we've all been there, and you push it, you get it approved, and then it fails the tests, or the pipeline fails, and then you've got to try and figure out what's going on, and then go through the code again. So you can actually make the changes here locally and speed up the process, right, before it even gets to the GitHub Actions side of things.
Yes, very much so. And this is just to shorten our development lifecycle now, and this is just the Terraform thing. But if I show you here the one, where's this? It's the K3s dev container. And this is literally how quickly it is. We can just go create a code space on main, and it's going to just quickly boot this up for me. And you'll see here it's doing just a Docker Compose up. Basically, it's pulling some layers of a container, and once it's started, we'll be dropped into it, and you can make little nice starter menus to get your users started. This is beautiful for stuff like open source projects, when people want people to contribute. So you need to make it as easy as you can for them to get started, as painless as possible. And I find these code spaces are like perfectly suited for that. So this guy's just pulled a layer, and it's just basically a base image of Ubuntu, and it's dropped us into the dev container. And so I wonder if I can just go a little bit over here. I'm just waiting for it to load.
Loving the colors, by the way. I don't know how you did that. Is that part of the image, or is that just something you've added in there? Message of the day, by the way.
Yes. So about 12 years ago, I was working in Berlin for Food Panda. Today they're called Delivery Hero. And we had lots of servers, and Berlin, in the winter, it's grey and it's rainy and it's cold. Me coming from South Africa, I just needed to see some colors. So I started with this as my message of the day. So whenever I log into a system, I can at least see a little bit of color. So yeah, it boots off with this little thing. And so in here, if we have a new little terminal, and we're just going to copy this little guy, and we're going to paste it over here, and we're going to allow it. So now we are just going to install Docker into this dev container. So while this is busy, I think I can just show you what I'm doing here. So in the Docker file, we just get some basic stuff installed, and we prep systemd, and then my command is sbin init. And I mount the sysfsc groups, and then there's this special little thing that I do is I say privilege true, cgroups host, tty true, and then here I mount tempfs into the places where Docker would have its containers, var lib docker. And I mount it in here for Rancher. because you cannot have overlay FS on top of overlay FS. So if you have a Docker daemon that's already overlay FS inside, you want to host another Docker, it can't happen. It doesn't want to do that. So then you have to use VFS, which is terribly slow. So now we've got Docker over here. We can do Docker PS, and we can actually do Docker info, and you will see that if we go Docker info, you can see here it's C groups 2 system D on TempFS. Right, and now what we can do is we are just going to go back to our little menu, and we're going to start K3S. And so if we copy this, and we just paste this in here, then we can start K3S, which is the little Rancher Kubernetes project in this container, and then we can run the Kubernetes dashboard, and we can run the Helm dashboard, and now it's super convenient for people to start using Kubernetes. A lot of people are still quite scared of it, when actually it's quite fun. You really don't need to worry about it. Kubernetes is really a lot of fun. There's so much you can do with it. It's an absolute beast, and it's so light that to have it running in a Docker container, like, it's mind-blowing at times, So we'll just wait for this little guy. What it's doing here, it's just checking that things are up.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like this because I speak about this a lot, and Kubernetes is so overwhelming when you first get into it, because there's so many different opinions, right? But with this just gives you everything you need to get up and running, right? Like,
yes,
copy and paste this line, punch in the terminal, hit return, next, right? Get you up and running.
Yes.
Now K9s there as well. Trusted K9s.
Yes. Now if we go in here into ports, we can go 8001, and we can open it in a browser, and we should see the Kubernetes dashboard. Now, I just want to show you this. If I right-click over here and I go port visibility and I make it public, and I share this with you, Control C. If I can just get to the chat again.
Stick it in the chat again. Yeah.
Which chat? Just need to see. Oh, here we go. There we go.
Let me try it.
Yeah, and I'll actually send you the token as well. This is going to be destroyed, so I don't mind sharing this. This will be live for exactly the duration. There's the token, and so if we now pop in this token over here, we can sign into our Kubernetes dashboard. You should be able to see the same, all namespaces.
So, hang on. Oh, yeah, I'm at the bearer token page, so I'm just going to grab the secret out of the chat. I know folks can't see it on my side, but let me just see. All the way from Canada to Australia. Look at this.
Loving it. Codespaces are sitting somewhere in the middle.
I'm in.
And that's
that
literally
means we can
how...
both look at the same thing, right?
Yes. And so this is a Kubernetes up in, like, what's it, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Like, I mean, it's you'll still be busy making a coffee, and this thing is up already. Now, this is really powerful because, so for me as a contractor, I don't always, let's say I work on a client and they use Jenkins with AWX Tower, getting secrets from Vault to do some stuff. I don't always have access to a Jenkins. I don't always have access to an AWX Tower, and the client maybe has access to this, but I have limited access to their Vault and stuff, where with this Codespaces, I can have a Vault up and running in a minute using HashiQube. I can have Jenkins up and running.
Hey folks, so we had a couple of technical glitches. It looks like we were stressing the internet backbone all the way from here in Canada to Australia. So we had some connectivity issues. So Riann kindly continued the rest of his demo locally and sent me the footage. So over to you, Riann. Let's wrap it up.
So before the connection cut out, we were on the Kubernetes dashboard, where you can see your workloads and you can share this with your colleagues, and you both can interact. But you can also fire up the Helm dashboard, which you can find in your Codespace. You can go to ports, and you can right-click and open this port in a new browser. And so this is also installed for you by default in this K3S dev container Codespace. Now, I've shown you a little bit about Terraform in Codespace, a little bit about pre-commit, how to get your environment up, how to step this up a bit to run Docker in a Docker container in your code space. We've talked about running Windows, but for me as a consultant, I had to use work on clients that are using Jenkins and Vault and AWS, AWX, Ansible Tower. And as a consultant, I don't always have access to these programs, or I have limited access, let's say in the case of Vault. So with Codespaces and my lab, HashiQube, you can quickly bring up a Vault that you can set a secret, and you can get your token, and you can export this in your pipeline, and you can then test retrieving these secrets with your Vault policies from Jenkins or your GitHub Actions pipeline or from Terraform. And this functionality that these code spaces bring to our lives as engineers, as DevOps consultants, is incredibly powerful. I mean, all of a sudden, you can at the click of a button, if we go at the click of a button, GitHub Codespace, we can resume this code space, and we can have a Vault up and running as soon as possible. So, Kevin, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed it. Pity about the interwebs, but I'm down under here in Australia. It's a big island, and it's a long, long way from everything and everyone. I hope to see you again soon, and all the best to you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.